This is a tutorial on how to pre-flight an InDesign file for printing. Now I've opened this InDesign file, and this is a recent file I touched, so I was a little bit familiar with it. There's a couple things we need to fix, so it's a good exercise to run through it. The design is essentially done, and it's ready for print. So here's what we're going to be going over. When you pre-flight, what you're doing is you're making sure you're running through this checklist to make sure that everything in the artwork is as it should be in order to print accurately. Print, trim, fold to produce the piece accurately. In order to do that, we need to check fonts, inks, links, blending modes, all that transparency to this, and mechanical specifications, meaning the physical size of the paper, any bleed, folding, anything physically to do with the piece. We'll go through the most common issues here, but what's really important in InDesign is that InDesign's native package feature, the package tool, will help you get a quick look at all these four things, and then you have to check the mechanical specs manually to make sure that everything is as it should be. And by manually, I mean with your eyes and your brain, not your hands. So we'll take a look at these first four. I can already see that we've got some problems with fonts. This brochure was not created on this particular machine. Otherwise, those fonts would probably be fine. So let's run through, and when I use the phrase pre-flight from InDesign, this is what I really mean. It means package. It's Command Option Shift P. And what the package feature is really for is to run through, identify any problems, and then if you hit the package tool, what it'll do is it will take all of your links, all of your fonts, and then create a notes file, and you have the opportunity to edit that notes file before it makes everything, so you can add your contact info, etc., so that you can zip everything up. It'll put it all in one folder for you. You can zip it all up and send it over to a printer, to the client, and you can add your contact info into the notes. That's especially in the case of having, like First State Bank ads, having assets being pulled in from different locations. If you need to send a native file, everything's going to be broken unless you know exactly where everything's at. But it might take a long time, especially with a multi-page document, in order to track all those links down. So package just does all that for you and then puts a copy of it into one folder for you. But what these days, what you most commonly use the package tool for is just to make sure that your fonts, links, inks, and transparency is good to go. At first glance, just like I thought, right here, we have a warning on fonts. We have 11 fonts used. 3 of them are missing. So that's something we need to fix. 30 links, 0 modified, 0 missing, and 0 inaccessible. So that's good. Your links are good. Good to go. None are embedded, which is fine. That'll save on file space. Linked links are always better than embedding links in InDesign. None use RGB color space, which is good because this is a full color printing job. Our colors and inks, 4 process inks, 1 spot ink. That's something that needs to be fixed. It did not throw a warning because for all it knows, you want to print 1 spot ink. It doesn't know what you want and what you don't want. So you just need to go through here and check all this stuff. 1 spot ink will check that out and remedy that. And then transparency and blending modes, non-opaque objects on both page 1 and 2. Now, this is not as big of an issue as it used to be. This used to be a really, really big struggle, and you could say it's still best practice to remove blending modes from InDesign, although they tend to print pretty well. So not a huge warning here, just something to probably quickly investigate and possibly remedy, possibly leave the same. So for starters, we'll start with the fonts. So we have our missing fonts here. We can see that. If you go to the Type menu, you go to Find Font. This is where we can see all of our missing fonts. All the fonts used, all the missing fonts. So 11 fonts used, just like the package tool said. 3 missing fonts. Here we go. We have our warnings. Thank you, calendar. So what you need to do is you need to select the one at a time. Go through and find a new one. I don't have this installed, so if you don't have it installed, you have to go track down the file. It should be on the server in the support folder. Copy it to your desktop, install it. Best practice is to do it through FontBook. There's FontBook. And then you'll see it pop up in here. So I don't have this font, I don't believe. Right. So I'm just going to go replace it just for the purpose of this exercise here. I'm going to replace it with anything. So you select your variety, hit change all, and it'll go through the document, change all of that font to your new one. So now we have this Avenir Roman, which we just changed it to. Montserrat, I'm going to change this to Cabin. Bold. Change all. Vladimir script. Let's change this to something annoying so we can see it, because we're actually going to see that change here. Change all. There we go. So you can see the change take place. Now, 0 missing. Good to go. Fonts are fixed. If we go to package again, which is Command Option Shift P, or file package. 11 fonts used, 0 missing. Good. One thing off the list. Next thing is the inks, 1 spot ink. So we're going to go to our ink swatches. When I'm preparing a file to print, now this should be the editable version, so this would be the final, what we would call the final. Not any cycles, not output, this is the final. What I like to do in the final is go to your swatches, select all unused. That's just going to clean it up for me. None of these swatches are used. These are up, down to here, down to the blue, are all default InDesign when you create a new document. Trash those. Now these are all fonts that are used. How you can tell if a color is spot color or not is this right here, this gray box right next to your color. And if the gray box has a spot in it, then that's a spot color. Double click, color type, spot. We want to change that to process. Now what it's going to do is it has these CMYK values in here. These may be default, these may be generated by InDesign. What you need to do is you need to check this against your brand guidelines, your style guide. Make sure that these color specifications are correct. Hit OK. For example, let's say we need it to be more blue. All the green change to blue. Let's say we need to make it more pink. Let's get a good annoying color in there. Yellow. There we go. All your green change to yellow. So anywhere you see this swatch is now going to be yellow. So, but if it was a spot color, it would print its own plate. So you'd have a cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and then Pantone 349 plates. We do not want that. This is a process job. So it needs to be process colors only. Go ahead and undo that. There we go. So now we have our green. We're going to assume these color specs are correct. No spot colors. I'm going to go to Command Option Shift P, or again, File, Package. zero spot inks. So our links are good, fonts are good, colors are good, or inks are good rather. Now we have transparencies on both pages. We'll start at the front. So I can see right away that our transparencies are coming from our PSD files. We have 1, 2, 3, and then our logo, 4. Our logo looks like it has a little drop shadow too. So process of elimination, let's see here. You wouldn't do this with an actual final file. I'm just curious, just for the point of an instruction. If it was those PSDs, if it was this logo, or it could be these objects here. And I don't really see any other transparencies in here, except maybe one of these overlays possibly. There we go, 100%. No blending modes. I wouldn't guess so. Maybe these right here. Here we go, we've got some transparencies here. 30%. So far nothing to be alarmed about. No blending modes. I'm going to add these back in. Let's zoom in here. I'm going to take a look at these objects, see if they're links or if they're native paths, native artwork in InDesign. Okay, so it's all one big group. Let's separate this object here. This looks like two different links. So there might be a blending mode from this green picking up some of that texture in there in the link. That's fine. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Native blending modes in InDesign, it's a gamble. It's probably a safe gamble, but it's a gamble nonetheless. Best practice, if you have any blending modes, have them be in your links, not natively in InDesign. So all that to say, I think we're safe on blending modes on this file. So there we go. We've got everything that package can tell us about fonts, inks, links, transparency, and blending modes. So now we just have to check mechanical specifications. So we're talking about these three items right here: bleed, fold lines, die lines if it's a die cut, and safe space. So I know just from being familiar with this job that it's a double gatefold, meaning we have one fold in the middle, right here, and then we have a fold here on the left, fold here on the right, and these outside panels fold in, and then these inside panels fold in inside that. So I know that from the front to the back, left and right, it's perfectly symmetrical. That's the design. It should be perfectly symmetrical. So we'll go ahead and take a look at our layers here. We have a guide layer. Good. So our guide layer is going to be our die line, basically. Let's zoom in. Zoom into the edge. So our blue, zoom out a little bit so we can see our guide layer here. Blue, safety, red is cut. This is a 4-over template. So although this is a 4-over template, typically 4-over, if you start with their file, I'll go to 4-over just for example. We'll go to resources, templates. Let that load, and I'll finish what I was saying. Typically what they do is their artboard includes bleed, and then so it would end right here. This artboard ends at the trim line, which is a conventional way of laying things out, so that you have to include bleed when you output. Their artboards include the bleed, which is kind of an idiot-proof way of doing it. I would say it's best practice to start with their file, which includes bleed, and just build in, use your guides like this, use your margins like this, and to denote trim lines and safe space. So for instance, this is a brochure, which is under flyers and brochures. This is a double gate, so we're going to find our double gate. Where are we at? Roll, try, see. Did I miss it? Double gate. This is an 8.5 by 14 double gate. So they don't have an InDesign, they have an EPS, they have a JPEG. So the JPEG is going to be what you see here, already linked in. So you already have this file in this file. So again, if your EPS is going to include bleed, and it's best practice to include bleed in the artboard. So your total with bleed, this would be the size of the artboard rather than your trim size. Not a problem for this project. We just have to remember to include bleed in the output file in the PDF. So it looks like we'll check bleed first, which we just checked. We have it built in here. It extends beyond all of our, let's check our artwork, make sure our artwork extends beyond into this red area, which is InDesign's bleed area. Black is trim, purple is safe space. So take a look all the way around, make sure we have bleed. We do. Check the second side, the inside. We have artwork within this outside red line all the way around. So we have bleeds there as well. Good. So bleed is good. We'll check our fold lines. We'll turn our guide layer back on. Okay, so we have our guide right there set up right on the die lines fold line. We have another guide right there set up, which is good. Our third one, those are all accurate. So our fold lines are accurate according to the die line. Same here. Fold, fold, fold. Okay. So what we need to look at here is just to make sure that the fold's not going to fold over anything weird. This is a little bit, oops, undo that. I don't like that right there. It's a little close, might look weird. Is it enough to change it over? Probably not. This is a lot of information to have on a page. Kind of just have to roll with it. Out here, it's really important that this cover, this front cover, which is so different than the rest of the panels, this fold line, this is great for folding because they can miss it a little bit left or right, no big deal. Plenty of margin for error here. This one, zero margin for error. If they miss this fold, it's going to look bad. Now they're pretty good at hitting it. 4 over is. You have to know your vendor. There are some that are better than others at folding. 4 over is pretty good at folding. They're good about watching quality control as well. So you don't have to worry a whole lot about that. You just have to make sure that the artwork actually hits the fold line. Which in this case, I might have moved it here. So I'm going to undo a couple times because I was messing around with it. And in this case, glad I checked. We are off our fold lines. You see that? That's the fold line. This is where our artwork is. So it got bumped over probably by accident. We got shifted over just a little bit so it locks up to those fold lines. Fold on the inside looks good. Fold on the outside now looks good. So our bleed and trim is good. Our fold is good. Now we just need to check safe space, which is going to be this purple margin in here. I don't see any issues with type. The logo clears it right here. All of these objects are all inside that line. This is intentional. Everything on this page is very safe. So our safe space is good. So our mechanical specifications are good, and that completes our pre-flight. So the next step would be to save a perfect final file and then export our output file, which is going to be a PDF. File, export, or Command Option Shift. Nope, I'm sorry. Command E. File, export, Command E. And best practice is to put a dash output. We already have one in here. You can see outside, inside. We don't have the word output in there. It should have the word output, all caps. This is your printing file. This is the perfect print ready print file. Output dash inside. I'm going to save this on my desktop just for my downloads. There we go. Just so I don't mess with this actual live project, which I'm tinkering around with. So client project out dash output dash outside or inside. Select high quality print. Range, you're going to do one page at a time. So we did inside, so that's page 2. And then the only other thing that you need to check is marks and bleeds. And in this case, we do need bleed. We have 1/8 of an inch. It's hard to see on the screen here, but there's 1/8 of an inch bleed already built in. And so those are the document bleed settings. We can't change that. You can go in and do it manually if you want. Best practice is to use the document bleed settings and to have it set up properly so that the next person who outputs the file does it the exact same as well. We do not need crop marks, bleed marks, any of this stuff, any printer marks for 4 over. We don't need any of that information. If we were sending it to an independent print shop or an Alpha Graphics, do add in crop marks. If they need registration, color bars, so on and so forth, they'll do that. Their software will do that. Dymaco down in Addison, they'll do the same thing. They'll add their own color bars, they'll add their own registration marks because they have software that corresponds with their printing press and how to quality control that. So they would just delete all of whatever we created for this anyway. We do need crop marks always for sending to independent print shops. 4 over, they have a system. We use their template. We include bleed, and it's good to go. You would export. And that's it. Export the front, export the back, and you're done. You're done pre-flighting.